So I don't know if anyone wants to jump or if you want me to call. Vilma, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
My name is Vilma Cuevas. I am the head of human resources for Westman Medical Group. We are based here in Westchester. We're actually down the street from the school. We have about 2,000 employees, and we are very embedded in the Westchester community and the Fairfield County community. We are very focused on diversity and inclusion as an organization. And I'm very excited to be here with you guys today.
Thank you. Jamita?
Certainly. So hello, everyone. Jamita Fields. I am the Vice President of Diversity, Inclusion, and Engagement at the Paley Center for Media. For those of you who may not know, the Paley Center is a 501c3, basically a nonprofit organization. We started off as a museum, the Museum of Television and Radio. We archive and digitize television and radio programs. In 2007, we took on the name of the Paley Center for Media to take on all of media's new forms. And today we host conversations that examine media's critical and impact and influential role on society. In my role every day, I have the wonderful pleasure of working internally with my colleagues, building out our programs. D&I is in everything that we do, so from the programs that we produce to the audiences that we want to bring, which is everyone. We want to make sure everyone feels welcomed. So I'll look forward to sharing a little bit more about that as the program goes on, but it's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Christopher, if you'd like to go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Officer Barreto. I'm a recruiter for the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision.
A little hard to hear you. Sorry.
How about now?
That's better.
A little better?
Yeah.
All right. My name is Officer Barreto. I'm from the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. I'm a recruiter for the department. I recruit for civilians, medical positions, walks of life. There always has been. We have an Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Can you still hear me?
You broke up a little, but it's a little better now.
All right. Yeah, it's tough in this area. I apologize. So yes, we have an Office of Diversity and Inclusion for the state, but the New York State Department of Corrections has always been diverse in hiring, whether it's for a civilian position, medical professionals, or law enforcement titles as well.
Thank you. Awesome. And then Michelle, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks very much, Jessica. My name is Michelle Green. I hold a master's in counseling for the hearing impaired from Gallaudet College in Washington, D.C. I have been with the New York State Education Department Access VR office, which is Adult Career and Continuing Education Services, Vocational Rehabilitation, which is a federal and state funded program that assists individuals with disabilities to receive training, equipment, and job placement services in order to be able to go out into the workplace and get a job and become productive members of society. So I'm happy to be here today, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. That is great. So my next question is going to be for Jamita, Vilma, and Christopher, and then Michelle, I have another question for you. So maybe starting with Jamita, if that's okay. So my next question is, how do you and your organization define diversity and inclusion? And then how far along the DEI journey do you feel your organization is?
So we are fairly new. We are fairly new in the DEI engagement area internally, I would say. So with the museum, we have a lot of, with our regards to our different programs, we're constantly trying to shine a light on how media or television, different shows, the diversity that we see in television affects who we are, every single day. And with this work, we have done a number of programs throughout the years, I would even say over the decades. Recently, we have launched programs such as the Peter Roth Internship, which is a program that we launched just this year, looking at the pipeline of and trying to reach out to a diverse community of college students, juniors and seniors, who would be and from all walks of life, whether it's racially and ethnic diversity, all the way to disabilities or abilities, to make sure that the landscape is leveled. So often what we see in television and even in the industry are perhaps favors that are given out. You must know somebody to get into the business. And we are working with our different partners to make sure that that we are kind of creating an even playing field. So in that work, we reached out to state community colleges, historically Black colleges, et cetera, in the push in that area. Additionally, when it comes to traditional HR, we form a lot of different partnerships. Since we are a media-based company, these partnerships could, there are a variety of different partnerships, whether it's National Black Journalists Association, so on and so forth, but forming various partners so that when we have different positions to post, we will be able to receive a variety of diverse candidates back to us. That's just a couple of the things that we're working on implementing.
That's great. Thank you.
That we're doing, rather.
Vilma, would you like to go next?
Sure. So we are always focused as an organization on looking like the population we serve. We're a healthcare organization, and we know that for our patients to get better, and there's a direct impact with how well our patients are receiving treatment and how comfortable they are when they see themselves in the people that are taking care of them. So having a workforce that reflects the patient population is key to our success. We've been working on this from the beginning of the insertion of West Med. We are a 25-year-old organization, and it's been since day one. We've been focusing on making sure that we look and sound and feel like the population of our patients. It has been a journey. It's a journey we continue to work on. We focus on it a little bit more every year. In 2019, I was brought onto the organization to put more focus on how we are attracting diverse candidates and what are we doing to make sure that we're providing a more inclusive environment within the organization to make sure people are not only coming in, but are going to feel comfortable once they get here and feel supported once they get here. We look at diversity and inclusion as, and our main focus is really providing an environment where there's equity. We think that if we focus on each individual and making sure each individual is receiving what they need and the support that they need and the one-on-one that they need to be successful, that makes for an environment where people can really thrive. We look at creating inclusion is part of the culture, is part of our values, is part of what we teach every day, is embedded in every one of our policies and processes. Every time we roll out a policy, we make sure that we're looking at it from every angle. When we're looking at our operations and when we look at how we do our business every day and how we treat our employees and the decisions we make from a leadership perspective, that we're looking at how that is going to affect people and not only our employee population, but also our patient population. So really we emphasize it as being an inclusive work environment that provides everyone with what they need to be successful. So we look at each employee as an individual, the same way we look at each patient as an individual.
That's great. Thank you. Officer Barreto, would you like to respond? Oh, Christopher? Officer, yes.
I'm here. It's still that the internet's spotty, so please bear with me. I'm going to share screen in this way. I got a couple key topics I'm going to show you, if that's okay.
You have access, yeah.
All right, let me get on here real quick. So New York State Department of Corrections, as I was saying before, has an Office of Diversity and Inclusion. It's in compliance with the Executive Order 187. As you can see, ensuring diversity and inclusion and combating harassment and discrimination in the workplace. There's a couple of things that the mission of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion is to promote the fairness and equity in all aspects of the department operations. As a recruiter, I'm tasked to go through multiple parts of the state. As you can see, here's our prison map that we have right here, all our facilities, I should say. As you can see, it's broken on. There's 50 of them currently. You guys can still hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. If you can speak a little
Perfect,
louder, but I
perfect.
can hear you.
Perfect. All right. So as you can see, we have 50 facilities around the state, and a lot of our regions has diverse regions, whether you're down in the Hudson Valley, Long Island, the 5 boroughs, Central New York, even out west, there's a lot of diversity and inclusion that we try to look for as a recruitment team. Like as I was saying before, New York State Docs has always been a diverse agency, especially with the state. There's plenty of opportunities available. If you're looking employment-wise, this is our website. It's been redone. So if you were to click over here to employment opportunities, you would see, obviously, there's our correction officers. But if you go down here, all the employment opportunities that we have available, whether it's programs and rehabilitation, clerical and secretarial, food service, parole office, all of those positions include an inclusive and diverse. There may be some things that you're unable to do as a correctional officer, as a parole officer, but my job is to help find you a job within our department, whether it's in maintenance or nursing, programs of rehabilitation. There are many things that we have to offer, especially being a diverse and inclusive agency. And sometimes a lot of times we go to impoverished areas, and we try to talk to people of all walks of life into joining our agency, because it's a good path. It's a state agency, so you'll be in the state retirement system, and there's a lot of benefits to have. Hope you guys were able to hear me. I tried talking a little bit louder.
That was great. Thank you.
All right, perfect. And then
Perfect. Thank you. And then Michelle, we gotta get back to my screen, right? Michelle. So my question for you is, how do you educate organizations you work with on including people with disabilities into their DEI goals?
Well, that's really one of the main missions of the Access VR office, is to make sure that the community is aware of qualified job candidates. We have a Westchester Employment Network Placement Consortium, and we provide training to placement providers, to businesses, to HR groups, to schools, on every level, on disability etiquette, reasonable accommodations, the resources therein, what's covered under the ADA, how we can work together to provide supports. For example, if someone needed hearing aids or a standing desk or a smart pen for a student with a learning disability, we provide them with a lot of resources on how to accommodate and support that disability so that they are productive members of society. We also have a number of what I happen to think is really neat training programs. We call them our business series. The first and one of my favorites is a work tryout, where a business can quite literally try someone out. They put them on their payroll, and we reimburse them for their hourly wage for up to 480 hours. And how do we do this? These are your tax dollars at work. We use federal and state tax dollars to be able to provide this. individuals are put on the company payroll, and then we get an idea of how they're doing. And at the end of the work tryout, they let us know if they're interested or not. It's been highly successful. We've done more than 500 across New York State. Just in terms of a few statistics, there are about 2.2 million people with disabilities in New York State. The Access VR caseload in Rockland and Westchester is between 4,000 and 5,000 at any one time. And across New York State, Access VR handles about 50,000 people who are somewhere in the pipeline of beginning to receive vocational services, getting training, going to college, or then on the exit ramp, getting job placement assistance and that kind of thing. We also do on-the-job training. So if you have somebody, for example, who's changing jobs, or they've graduated recently from college, but then they're missing one skill. For example, I have a young man who is working right now for a nonprofit in the area, and he was hired to manage their social media, but he was missing some skills in WordPress. So we paid for a short training in WordPress, and the employer, we are reimbursing his wages for a period of time while he's receiving that training and while he's being brought up to speed. So he's receiving on-the-job training. The employer pays his benefits, but we pay his salary for a little bit. We also provide worker retention services. So if you have somebody who's been working for quite a long period of time, and say they develop a back injury and they need a specialized chair and the employer doesn't know where to get it, we can help with assisting the employer to know what the technology should look like and what recommendations would they best benefit from in order to be able to continue to work at that workplace. We see a lot of people returning from the pandemic, and of course we've gotten a lot of questions with regard to accommodations. While COVID itself is not a disability, it has left in its wake people with heart conditions and respiratory conditions and that kind of thing that may well be covered under the ADA. And finally, we provide, as part of the New York State Education Department, we can provide tax credits to businesses, and that has really helped many businesses, especially in this time when they've been hurting so much, to be able to bring on more employees. So those are just a few of the services that we provide to help to integrate our community.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So great. I'm going to go on to our next question. And if it's okay, Jimmy, I'll start with you. I'm kind of going down my camera line. So how can entry-level candidates research and find organizations, in general, who value DIE? Really, what are some tips you have for someone who is in the job search and is really trying to find organizations where it really is truly a value there? So let's start with you. Thank you.
All right. So I think that one, obviously in their research of the organization itself, you're going to take a look at the company, the leadership, who's on the board, and various, committees that they may have. Lots of great organizations have even whether it's employee resource groups, the various employee resource groups that exist at the organization, and sometimes even the causes that they support. You'll even see, perhaps even their mission statement. That's just on the general, that's just on your initial level, right? Then on the interview, you want to ask questions about, growth opportunities. Are there opportunities? So you're going to be entry level, but how are they going to, continue to develop you as a professional? And that certainly does speak to everyone. So you want to look for those opportunities as well. Mentorship, do they have those kind of, do they set up, is there mentoring? And then, then having, I think it's always okay, especially for a department that you might be working in, to speak to one or two of the people that are already there and ask them about, honestly, how are things here at the organization? That's a very fair question when you are kind of looking into joining any organization.
Thank you. And then Vilma, so same question. Your tips for and advice for doing that type of research.
Jamita was completely on point. So I'm just going to add to that is because I agree that the leadership, you need to look, it starts at the top. If the organization's leadership doesn't feel and look and sound like you, or they are not reflective of your beliefs, the organization itself is not going to have those beliefs. It's easy also to look at during the interview process, the application process, the people you're talking to sounding, and is that message resounded throughout your conversations with people within the organization? Is their career side reflective of a diverse work environment? I agree with, is their board reflected, all of that. But also when you're in the interview process, are they focusing on you and what it's going to take for you to be successful? Are they asking you, what type of environment do you succeed at? What kind of support do you need? How do you best learn? Because those are key signs of an organization that is vested in making sure that you as an individual is being addressed and that your own needs are being addressed. If the organization is not doing that and they're not asking you those questions, then you should feel comfortable asking them, what are you going to do? As Jamita mentioned, what are you going to do for me? What do you do for your employees? What do you do for your employees to help them grow? Because if an organization does not have a plan for you, there's a chance that if they don't have it now, they probably won't have it, and it's not part of their culture. You need to make sure that, I agree, asking to see people or to be part or to communicate with people within the team and ask them, do they feel included? Do they feel value in their organization? Are their voices heard? You should ask also, how would my voice be heard? How is your performance evaluation process? How does that work? Because those are key indicators of whether or not an organization has a process in place that is free of biases, as well as an organization that is looking at making sure that you're taken care of. Just remember that there might be organizations that look diverse on paper or that look diverse in certain way. That doesn't mean that they are an inclusive organization, because the two are not the same thing. There can be an organization that looks very diverse, but are the people in the organization feeling included and valued and supported? And that's something to look for.
That's great. Thank you. Officer Barreto?
Oh, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm still here. Yep. So if you guys, I'll mention our state website again, that New York State Docs Office of Diversity and Inclusion. There's a lot of things that they do in there. I'm going to share my screen again with you guys. This way you can get up our core services. You guys take a look at, as you can see, they developed a strategic plan, and a lot of and we're a state agency, so a lot of our positions go by civil service, so you take a test and then that's how you get your foot in the door. But going throughout, you'll meet, New York State Department of Corrections alone, correction officers has over 25,000 correction officers. That's just officers, and they're all, they come from different walks of life. And as you can see, that there's, from reasonable accommodations for religious observances and these little things that they implemented to keep everything diverse. And there's a lot in there. The website is over here. It's docs.ny.gov. And as you can see, you want me to post it back up there?
Oh no, there was laughter.
Oh, all right, no problem. And yeah, so there's our whole website and our whole mission. Actually it helps everybody to get that diversity and inclusion.
And do you have any, I'm so sorry, do you have any tips
go ahead.
in general for just in an overall search of just what to look for, even kind of knowing your own organization, but overall, what to look for, or resources that can help overall, kind of looking even within the state, but for organizations.
Yeah, you can go to civilservice.ny.gov, and that's another, because as I was saying before, a lot of the state agencies are going to be taking the civil service exam. So that's cs.ny.gov. I'll put it up in the messages as far as that. But yeah, that's probably the best way to navigate and get into more of the diversity and inclusion. So me personally, I've always just been the type to be my own person and actually go attack it on a personal level. But there's resources out there for you to help you guys. I'll put my contact information up. And if you guys have any more questions, I'll definitely, if you want to wait 2 seconds, I'll put it up right now. I can put up my contact information.
That's great.
As you can see. So to get out for everybody out there, if you go to doccs.ny.gov, and as soon as you hit that website, you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see employment opportunities. You scroll a little bit more. And if you have any questions for me, you would, contact information is right.
Oh, you're right there.
I'm right there.
Perfect. Thank you.
No, I am willing to help you guys anytime. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll point you in the right direction for any position that you're looking for in the docs.
Thank you. And then we get back. Perfect. And then Michelle, same for you, and maybe more with the focus on that research for organizations working with those disabilities. But, for entry-level candidates, do you have advice on just that research they should do or steps they could take to find that organizations that may be a better fit for them or just that are more inclusive?
Absolutely. As it happens, October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So this comes at the perfect time. We just had our celebration of National Disability Employment Awareness Month on October 8th in Westchester and on the 22nd in Rockland County. We did develop websites to celebrate those businesses which have been inclusive, and they're westchesteremploymentnetwork.us and rocklandemploymentnetwork.us. And on those links, you would be able to see all the businesses that have been honored on a local, regional, and statewide level for their inclusive hiring practices. We frequently get questions about what businesses hire people with disabilities. And these are a collection of about 40 businesses that definitely have hired in the last year and have been celebrated for that. In general, though, do your homework. Companies have a lot of information on their website showcasing their values and their behaviors, their sustainable business practices. And it's a good idea to check out that website really as a starting point, but also look at what their postings look like. Who are they trying to recruit? Look at LinkedIn, see what types of things that they are recruiting for in their managers, because that will tell you if they are truly recruiting in a diverse way. In addition, you want to look for some companies that have best practices. So Best Places to Work, Disability Inc., top 50 companies, that kind of thing. There are many, many, many websites which will talk about diverse jobs and diverse hiring practices and who does it well and who doesn't do it that well. Also take a look at the mission statement of the company and the profiles of the people who already work there in, say, a LinkedIn, because that will really help you to determine what their practices have been and who's currently working there.
That's great. Would you be able to also get the links, put those links in the chat, like the one you were talking about, the list that were just compiled for Westchester and Rockland? That'd be great. Thank you. So my next question is, how has the pandemic impacted DEI initiatives at your organization or really just in the industry itself? Vilma, do you want to start? Because your industry obviously was very impacted.
Yes, we were. And I'm going to piggyback on what Michelle said. There's also Diversity Inc. Is an organization that highlights national and international companies that focus on diversity, and they award different companies that are focused on different parts of diversity. So that's a good place to look, a good list to look at. We actually happen to be the only Westchester company on the list, but they are a great resource if you're looking for a place to find organizations that focus on diversity. In terms of how did the pandemic affect us? Oh my, I could go on for hours, but I could tell you that one of the things that we realized during the pandemic was that we needed to focus on our employees' mental health. That was a big change for us. We have always provided mental health support to our employees, but we have been very hands-off. We provide the resources and kind of let them use it as they saw fit. And we realized during the pandemic that we needed to do more. We needed to make it more available to our employees. We needed to provide them support every day. So that was a change for us. Although we have a mental health department that our employees could use, and we have a resource center, we realized that the pandemic was causing a lot of anxiety for our employees because they had to come to work and deal with sick patients every day. So that became a focus for us, making sure we have resources every second of the day in different ways, not just counseling, but also emotional support, things that they could do to release stress, and then also support them and their families with the struggles that they were going through. So that was also something that we were not necessarily focusing as a priority, and we had to change during COVID. We also had to change how flexible we became with our employees. The pandemic affected women more than anybody else. Women had to stop working because they needed to take care of their children and needed to be available. So we knew that was going to impact a large percentage of our population, because more than 80% of our employees are women. And so we needed to quickly adapt and provide them more flexibility and more support. So we focus on providing resources and helping them with their kids, with childcare, with homework support, with everything we could. Because if our employees were distracted or worried or concerned, they weren't able to come and take care of our patients. And obviously, we didn't have the luxury of saying we're going to shut down because our patients needed us the most during the pandemic. So those were the two things that I think were the biggest change for us, focusing more on our employees' wellness and mental health and providing more flexibility.
That's great. Thank you. So Jimmy, I'll ask you the similar question. Did you see the pandemic affecting the way your organization or industry thinks about DEI initiatives, or in general, was there any kind of relation there?
Sure, there was a ton. So, the pandemic. So after Floyd's unfortunate murder, George Floyd's unfortunate murder, we saw in the media industry, there were a number of statements that were put out about the new efforts that were going to take place from a lot of top media companies. And with that, I believe that folks already had their DEI plans in place. But what that did was expedite initiatives and different programs and put more money and resources into, things like the Peter Roth internship, giving folks more opportunity. Maybe if the program existed before and it was for 20 people, maybe they amplified it and made it for more. So I definitely think that we did see a lot of movement there, even for organizations that had legacy DEI that had been going on for years. This isn't something that's just brand new. And I liked what Vilma was saying about mental health and taking care of, and then also understanding the working conditions. So right now at the Paley Center internally, as we are about to leave our virtual work and go back into the building. We are located in Manhattan, in New York City. It will probably be in a hybrid situation, right? So what I mean by that is that we'll go into the office from Wednesday through Friday, and we'll be able to work virtually on Mondays and Tuesdays. And before, that wasn't something that I don't think we would have ever even considered. But you know, whether you're a working parent or a parent that is taking care of older, you know, or of your parents, et cetera, you never know what someone's, back to what Vilma was saying, you know, at her organization, that everyone is an individual. You don't know what their circumstances are. So having the opportunity to have that flexibility as a result of the pandemic has been something that I think is a positive as far as like the impact that it's had. You know, so if we can continue to respect other people's and our own mental health and keep that at the forefront and understand that there's so many pressures that we are continuing to go through, that we'll have a better, you know, work environment for everyone.
Thank you. Michelle, I know you had mentioned a little bit before about how the pandemic has affected how, you know, people coming out with disabilities and needing services, but do you have any other, you know, just any other thoughts or on how you feel that has maybe shifted thinking, you know, in the businesses that you're working with?
Sure. Well, we've received a lot of phone calls. Obviously, there's a lot more awareness about having to make accommodations in the workplace based on the fact that everybody has had, you know, disability touches the life of a lot of people in the United States at this point in time. The statistics prior to the pandemic were 1 in 4 people in the United States have some form of a disability. And people are often surprised by that. The #1 disability, believe it or not, is arthritis. So that's the most commonly occurring disability. But because we get a lot of those phone calls, you know, we as a government agency, we never shut down. But as Jamitha said, you know, they sent us home, you know, and we, you know, on a dime went and worked from home, but never stopped providing services to the community. And our services were needed a lot more. So we would contact the Northeast ADA Center with any truly special, difficult to answer questions with regard to how to provide an accommodation for people. And we also point people toward the Job Accommodation Network. And that's a network that has a plethora of information on how to accommodate people with disabilities, and specifically people with disabilities after the pandemic. So I could put the link to both of those organizations in the chat if you would find that helpful.
That'd be great. Thank you. And then Officer Barreto, did you see the pandemic changing your organizations or industries DEI initiatives, maybe specifically in recruiting? Did that affect your DEI initiatives at all?
It did. At one part, when the state was shut down, a lot of the civilians, a lot of employees were able to work at home. They were set up with computers and remote access. So a lot of employees were able to continue their employment. I don't believe anyone was laid off or anything, but there was still the employment was there. As far as the law enforcement side, the correctional officer and parole officer side, we were still business as usual. Of course, there was more safety procedures in place and a lot more protocols that we had to go through. But as far as it did shut down our recruitment unit for a little while, so it was hard. It was like we were just getting our feet on the ground when it was coming to doing more diverse things. And then COVID shut everything down, and it kind of like now we're back on our feet trying to get the word out again. So even though it was a slight hiccup, but you know, we were still going. It was still business as usual. I mean, we've been in part of the state since 1797. The department was formed, so we've seen a lot of hiccups throughout the years, and we just adjust and then we continue on. And safety is our most important aspect, especially public safety.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
So I want to just take a little break for my questions. And I just want to open it up to see, we'd love to hear from those in the audience. If you have any questions, please, you can unmute yourself, or you can please put it in the chat. I'll give a minute before I continue to talk. I'm just looking to see if there's any hands up. No questions right now. So I will say this, I will ask another question, but please, if you have a question, even, while our speakers are talking, then, oh, that's great. Sorry, I see. Yeah, Jeffrey has a question.
Hi there, Jeffrey. So I will actually add after this, I'll add it to the chat. So the information for the Peter Roth internship is available on our website. And right now, if you go to the website, which is the paleycenter.org, again, guys, I'll add it to this chat here. Our new incoming class is listed, and one of your very own, Layla Wilson, she is a current senior at SUNY Purchase, will be starting with us in a week. So we're excited to welcome this new class of incoming interns.
She interned with the Career Development Center last semester, so we're super excited. Thank you.
Great.
Are there any other questions right now? All right, well, if you have them, please add them to the chat. I'm going to ask my next question. Jamitha, if it's okay if I start with you, I think, sorry if I started with you last time, but does your organization have any affinity groups or specific committees, affinity groups for employees that support diverse populations? And then if so, how do these groups contribute just to the culture of your overall organization?
Sure. So in my role, especially when you think about the part of engagement, I create a number of partnerships with different organizations. Again, because we are a museum 501c3, one of my roles, responsibilities I'm charged with is getting and creating a diverse audience, for the Paley Center. So there are a lot of partnerships that are formed on that end. I also have the privilege of working with a lot of chief diversity officers and some human resource officers at our partner and board companies. And again, these are everyone from folks over at Viacom, CBS, on and on. So I have a wonderful and powerful network that I'm able to go to for a number of different things, whether it's challenges we're having or whether it's just, sharing information around HR. I do have external support that way. And then at the Paley Center, we are a very small group. We are about 50 to 70. When Vilma said that she had 20,000 people, or not 20,000, I think you said 2,000 people. Yeah, 2,000 people. We form groups. I'm looking forward to forming things a little bit more formally, but nothing has been formalized yet, as of yet. That's
great. Thank you. Well, Vilma, I'll go to you. So do you have affinity? Are there affinity groups?
Yes, we do. We have a Diversity and Inclusion Council, and we have about 50 members. They consist from our housekeepers to physicians in their organization that are focused on, they're responsible for driving and keeping us honest. So our Diversity Council meets monthly. They come back to us in leadership. I actually head the Diversity Council. They have direct access to our executive team. Their executive team comes to our monthly meetings, and they are focused on making sure that their areas are represented, that their organization is being heard. They hold us accountable, meaning that we have to give them data from what does our organization look like, who are we hiring, who are we firing, who, where is our organization money being spent? Are we, I'm sorry about that. Are we, as an organization, affiliating ourselves with diverse organizations? That's a major focus for us that came out of our diversity and inclusion group. They wanted to make sure that that we had our partners and the organizations we're spending money on and purchasing items from were either minority owned or had a commitment to diversity and inclusion. So that has been a big focus for us on the purchasing and finance side. They hold us accountable to make sure that we maintain diversity within the organization. We are pretty diverse, but it's stuff that always comes up, areas that they think that we need to improve. They bring feedback on any policy changes we've made and how that has affected the employees and their colleagues. They've run a lot of education sessions as well from their area. We have a diversity book club, a diversity, and they come together once a month and discuss different books. We have a club that focuses on film, and they watch different films and they discuss it and share within the organization, and they're usually films that focus on the different things that the group is interested in or is focusing on. So we've read quite a few books and have shared through their organization. So I think that's a good way for us to keep everybody engaged and educated. But the panel is very much involved and is well represented across not only the different titles and positions in the organization, but by different people of different ages, different groups. So we're very proud of our diversity council. They're very active. They're very much involved, and they drive our strategy really, and they hold us accountable.
Thank you. Michelle, so for you, I don't know if, you know, or some of the organizations that you're working with, do they have affinity groups just for DI in general, or maybe specifically for those with disabilities, or I guess what is your sense of the organizations that you're working with, or even just for Access VR? Thank you.
Okay. Well, our primary focus is to work with job candidates with disabilities. And so that would be our focus. But in that role, I am on the executive board of the Rockland County Workforce Development Board and on the Westchester Workforce Development Board as well. And in that role, I have provided ADA training to the career centers in both places so that the staff there is very well versed in serving individuals who have disabilities in their background, and I provided training to the board. I also was the diversity chair for Westchester Human Resources Management Association for 4 years, and during that time provided that organization with training and selected presentations on a variety of areas such as mental health, return to work from COVID, second chance candidates who have been just as involved, in order to be able to have HR representatives really think more broadly about the whole workforce and who would be appropriate. I also have provided training to HR connections at the Rockland Business Association in Rockland County, and have provided feedback to NIATEP, which is the New York Association for Training and Employment Professionals, and asked them to spotlight job candidates with disabilities in their State of the State report as an underutilized resource for the workforce to consider, in addition to those who were not born in the United States and other candidates who were underutilized. And they have now included for the last several years our community in their annual report.
Great, thank you. Christopher, so does the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, are there affinity groups for employees or committees that are there to support diverse populations?
There definitely is, and the two that are upcoming, they should be coming in the next couple of weeks for the employees. One is going to be the minorities in criminal justice. That's a big event that's hosted in, I forgot where it is, but it's in the Hudson Valley, and that should be coming within the next week or two. It's all different agencies that get together, all the employees of these agencies and civilians too, not just the law enforcement side, but it's just going to be a big event. That's one. Another event that we just had was a Women in Corrections event for the correction officers. It's a great, well, not just women, but men are invited as well. But that's the core of it is the Women in Corrections. My wife went to it. She's a correction officer as well, and she's an instructor in the academy. But yeah, we have, there's throughout the whole year, there's just tons of different events. And not only that, us as a recruitment unit too, we go to community outreach programs too. We were just over the summer with the NYPD, their community relations team. We did a bunch of events there. We saw staff from other agencies in the local community. So we're constantly doing an outreach. And I believe that was in Harlem. And then we had another one that we're doing in Far Rockaway with NYPD, and then throughout the Hudson Valley as well.
That's great. Thank you. So we have a question in the chat, which is mentoring was mentioned earlier. How many of your organizations have a mentoring component in your onboarding program? So anybody who would like to share, does anyone have a mentoring? Oh, Michelle, okay.
As part of our focus on students, which has been for quite a number of years now, as a state agency, we're able to pay our placement vendors to set up work experience, and we pay them to find work experience opportunities and internships, and we do paid internships we fund paid internships during the summertime throughout the Hudson Valley.
That's great, thank you. Vilma, I think you. Yeah.
Yes, so we have both internship programs, but we also have a mentoring program for once people come into the organization, new hires come into the organization, for all the way up to our providers. Physicians come out of medical school and we have a mentoring program for them. So everyone is assigned a mentor of some sort once they come into the organization. In some instances, we call them a buddy, not necessarily a mentor. And then we have more specific programs for certain roles where we know the person will need a mentor, where we provide a more structured mentoring program. And on that other hand, we do also take interns throughout the year. We've actually taken some of yours, I think.
Thank you. Christopher, you have your hand up?
Yeah, so we also have a mentorship program and internships available as well. But those are kind of like, you have to go through the civil service website and you go navigate the docs website, and it'll show you exactly how to sign up for those internships and mentorships. It could vary from mentoring a superintendent to a commissioner to assistant commissioner, personnel department. I mean, the opportunities are endless. You just gotta, hone in on what you really want, and then we'll guide you to where you're going.
That's great, thank you. Jimmy.
Sure. I'll just say this. So we have a couple of things. So in addition to our onboarding process that we have at the PLE Center, we certainly have mentorships that are set up for our interns and obviously the Peter Roth internships. We also do an external mentorship program to high school students and to other college students. We set up workshops, and in doing so, we connect them to professionals in the industry to be able to basically spotlight and talk to them about their careers for a certain amount of engaged time. So that's part of some of the things that we do as well.
That's great, thank you. Yeah, so I'd love to hear some more questions from the audience. So please, I'll give you guys a minute if you can either add it to the chat or unmute yourself. yeah, we have about 10 or so minutes left. If not, I'll be, me talking again. Just making sure that. Any questions? Okay. Oh, it's just a comment that love that you have the mentoring component in internships and beyond. That's great. Yeah. So I have a kind of I have a question that really is just more if for any panelists who would want to answer, really just about your own approach to understanding different perspectives of colleagues from different backgrounds, because I think for students coming in to the professional workforce, that may be something new for them. Obviously, most students have worked, but really understanding, coming into a world, working with new colleagues and understanding different perspectives. So really just, if you're willing to share your own kind of personal approach to that. And I'm not gonna, whoever would like to answer that question.
Yeah. Oh,
Go ahead.
you go
Okay.
first.
No, okay. No, I was just gonna say, it's just treating everyone as an individual and getting to know someone on their own. No two people have truly the same experience, So even myself as a Black woman, my experience growing up in the Bronx, wherever, then going out to the University of Connecticut for college is different than someone that may have grown up in the South and may have grown up somewhere else. So we don't have the same experiences. So come with that, and just be open and understanding and, just with a clean slate of no expectations, just getting to know someone as a person, as an individual.
I agree. Ask questions. That's the best way. Don't make assumptions. Truly ask questions. People want to tell you about themselves and they want you to get to know you. So it's important that when you come into a new work environment, you are open, you ask questions, you don't make assumptions because you don't know, as Jamita said, like not everybody's the same. Not all Hispanics are the same. Not all African Americans are the same, have the same background. Not every millennial thinks the same. So don't generalize and don't make assumptions. There is more to people than what is in the surface. I teach a class to our managers around seeing things that are below the surface and making sure that we look for those things and we understand that everybody's different and that there's stuff that people sometimes don't want you to know because they're worried about how they're going to be perceived. If you're in an inclusive environment, it doesn't matter how people will accept you for who you are. So be open, share who you are, be proud of who you are. I can say that be aware of your own biases. We all have them. That it's not a secret. We all have biases. And biases are based on how we grow up and what we believe and what we see in the environment that we've been in. So be aware of your own biases because sometimes that prevents you from really getting to know other people and really opening yourself up to other people. So that's what I would say. That's how I live my life. I check myself all the time because sometimes we all do that. We make assumptions. So make sure you check yourself, make sure that you ask questions so you can have a better understanding. No one's ever going to be mad because you ask questions, so you try to get to know them if they know it's coming from a good place.
Michelle?
My philosophy has always been life is a matter of perspective. It's important to understand the perspective of where someone is coming from and how they've been raised, being aware of their background and their experiences. One of the issues that we have in our community is, I met a deaf person once, and so therefore all deaf people are, and every person with a disability has their own individual experience of that disability with their own skills and abilities. I also believe, in addition to knowing where you're from, active listening is really important. Asking the questions you need, but also listening intently to the people around you and the answers that they give that they give. I often will take notes during a conversation, and that really helps me to listen and kind of make a file of the things that I want to really remember and emphasize in my life. So it's just a way of reinforcing how you want to live your life.
I call it the 80-20 rule. Listen 80% of the time, speak 20% of the time. That's the best way to get to know people.
That's very good. Thank you. And Christopher?
Yeah, so I'll add something real quick onto all of that. As an individual, don't be afraid to grow. Don't be afraid to continue your education, continue your training. It's very easy to start a job and, take the training at first and then stop and become, I guess you could say, stagnant. But always try to do better and continue your training. One thing I was told early on in my career was that take bits and pieces of everyone, no matter who they are, things that you like of everyone, and then mold that into your own self, and then that'll make you a better person. And another thing that I usually keep in my pockets since I was a little kid was this little thing. It says, think big. And then on the other side of it, it says the possibilities are endless. So I keep that. And then when I start getting nervous or anything, I'll keep it in my hand or in my pocket, and then it'll ground me back to where I need to be.
I love that. Thank you. So we just have a couple of minutes left. Are there any last minute questions? Any other questions? No. Well, I just want to really, on behalf of Career Development Center, just thank you all for just taking the time today and sharing with our students. And I just truly appreciate it. We truly appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. If anybody has any additional questions, or they can reach out at any point. Happy to answer any questions.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
I was wondering if that's possible.